Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I hope your family's well. I hope you're feeling grateful for what you have. And let's get to it. Today's video is about homelessness, but more importantly, it's tied to a quote I read that said, "It's very difficult to teach people that things can be wrong and right at the same time." And so, along those lines, those of you who might have followed me on YouTube know that I I often take issue with the way local governments are citing homeless shelters. It seems to be a pattern that has existed since decades ago, and discrimination and oppression began a long, long time ago. Slavery, a lot of things happened, but I'm going to start at redlining, which was a process where homelanders wouldn't lend to people who wanted to move into neighborhoods outside of their ethnic enclaves. And so black people were put together, Mexicans were put together, Asians were put together, and that's how you have these really segregated communities now. And after that, when decisions were made about where to put things by the government, these were the communities that usually got them. There was a study commissioned by the state of California called the Cerrell Report. I believe it's Cerrell. And the purpose of that report was to determine where the government would put garbage incinerators. And the conclusions were to put them in Catholic communities, in brown communities, in our communities. And they put up three, and they all were put in communities of color. One is in Modesto. So there's that. Then, the freeways went through the black and brown neighborhoods. Refineries are in the black and brown neighborhoods by and large, and as well as a lot of other industries. The auto industries that have associated emissions and pollutants with them are in black and brown communities. And if you guys are from LA, you guys might have heard of Baldwin Hills. When I went there, it looked like one of the richest, if not the richest community here in Sacramento. Only it was all black folks doing the same stuff that the folks in this almost exclusively white community in Sacramento do. Walking their dogs, yoga in the park, and it's surrounded by oil and gas operations. So fast forward to today, I'm seeing the same pattern with the homeless shelters. You guys might recall the white flight of the 50s and 60s, I think, where people left the suburbs. You might have heard Compton was white at one time. And so all these folks moved. And what I've noticed over the last decade or two is them coming back, and the inner cities that had been left to, lack of resources, desolation, homelessness. They started to gentrify in the big cities. And that started pushing the people out of those communities into historically black and brown and Asian communities. And so that's been a big part of my advocacy and what I share around the homeless issue. It could seem that I have issues with homeless people, but I would want to share a couple of stories to kind of, that was the wrong, and I kind of want to share the right. And the right, I'm not sharing it in the sense of like me being right, but just what I saw. So I've already shared one in a previous video on speaking up. It was about a homeless lady on the train who had lost her kids in a fire, and was just a beautiful person. The other one I want to share was most recently. So I saw a flyer for a community discussion with the councilwoman who is proposing a safe parking space for homeless folks. And it's pretty close to where a lot of the other places are being put, which is a historically and still black community. And so I see this car, and it's been in front of my house for about 3 or 4 days, and I'm okay with it. I know what's happening. And then one day I see a bunch of litter, and I got pretty mad. Littering is a pet peeve, so I go over there and I knock on the window, and this guy kind of wakes up, and I go, "Hey man, I've been cool with you, and it's not cool that you litter when you leave," because I'd seen it happen before. And he goes, "Oh, no." And, he kind of came to, and he goes, "Look, this is my little garbage bag. And this is where I keep it. I wouldn't litter." And I believed him. And then he reached out, and he shook my hand, and he gave me his name, which is the name of a state where he's from on the East Coast. And he says, "Look, man, I'm really sorry for parking here. I just feel safe sleeping in your neighborhood. And I'll get out of here." And I just recently had a memorial service, and I had some birria left over. Pretty good birria too. And so I told him, "Hey man, you like birria? Can I get you something to eat?" And he goes, "I've never had it." And I said, "Well, if you don't like it, give it to someone, because goat's an acquired taste." And so I hooked him up 2 fat tortillas. I heated up some birria. I gave him some diced cilantro, habanero, and cebolla, and then some really good salsa. I didn't make it. It was catered. And so I take it to him, and he says, "Yeah, man, I shouldn't be here much longer. I put in my paperwork for housing. And I get SSI, and I'm a veteran." And then he told me a story that I'd heard once already, which was that a lot of the homeless, at least in my part of town, in my side, which is kind of rough, were getting assaulted, and these were the ones who were on drugs. He said, "I hate heroin, I hate meth," and he didn't appear by any stretch of the imagination to be on drugs. He was just genuinely down and out on his luck. And then he said, I don't remember how many years ago, I think he might have said like 6, that his wife died from diabetes. And he talked about the symptoms she had gone through, and how it was watching her die. And it was kind of crazy, because that's kind of what happened with my mom. And so I was able to relate. And I don't know if there was any way he could have known that, but he told me that, and he said he held on for his kids, and then when they moved out, he just gave out. And now he's getting back on his feet. He said, "I won't bring people around here. If I'm still here, you can count that I won't bring anybody." And he was just a very, I don't know how much you can learn about someone in a conversation, but what I got was he seemed like a decent person. He didn't seem on drugs. He didn't have any of the symptoms. I had heard that, the folks on drugs who were littering, his feeling was that those folks make it harder for people like him to be able to coexist with the community. Because him parking across the street from me, if he leaves before everyone leaves, and he's not learning our schedules, and yada yada yada, and pretending to be homeless. I don't know if that happens, but I imagine it could. I don't have a problem with him. And I had planned to go to that meeting and say, you're racist for doing that and putting it here. You're only putting them in the black communities and the brown communities, you know, the barrio and the little Saigons and and then I met this man and I talked to him and it was like, man, maybe he should be able to park there. You know, why not? And so, but the issue is why not is because you're not putting those parking spaces, you're not distributing them equitably throughout the city so that we all share in the burden. And when you put them here, you know, you might be someone that grew up in the barrio and you never did nothing wrong. And you become the first time homeowner. And now your kids might not have to work through college. They can focus on their studies and go a little bit further. An American president, I don't know which one it was, but a famous one said, I study war and politics so my kids can study geometry, arithmetic, architecture. My kids should study engineering, architecture, science, so their kids can study poetry, music, the arts. We evolve. And when all these things are put in that barrio to spare nicer communities that are not the barrio and not the hood, it holds us back from getting to that place where we're not just trying to survive. We're not just trying to prove how tough we are. And so that's how things could be wrong and right at the same time with the example of homelessness. I want that guy to have somewhere to go. I really do. And like I said, I'm cool if it's here, but it's not cool that it's only put in our communities. I hope this was helpful in you know, rebutting a lot of the arguments I hear on a lot of YouTube channels that it doesn't exist because we can overcome anything. You know, we shouldn't have to overcome anything that everyone else doesn't also have to overcome. And for some folks, I believe it should be made easier because you're going back to that history of redlining and even further. And, you know, so that's my 2 cents on how things can be right and wrong at the same time. Hope you guys have a blessed day, a good day, and, you know, keep your head up.